All right, we have a little bit of a different topic to go over today. What can be bombshell news is there's now a whistleblower who has been part of the national security. He's been a national security official for years. He started in the Air Force like 14 years ago. His name is David Grush, and up to recently, he was a high level official in a task force that was meant to look into UFOs for Congress and report back to Congress. Now, apparently, this has been a story that's been developing for years, and I've caught some parts of it that were in the news because last year, part of this is whistleblowing process. He came forward and he testified or gave classified briefings to Congress about UFOs and gave them a bunch of information that we're now learning today came from him. So now we have somebody who, and as of yesterday, he's been giving interviews to journalists to so that they can corroborate part of his story and share it with the public. And so there's an article in the debrief that everybody should go read. There's an in-person interview he did on, I think it's called News Nation, that everybody should go watch. It's about 11 minutes. The clip's about 11 minutes. It contains the interview. It's on YouTube. I'll probably link it in the description. But David Grush is claiming that, or let me be clear, this isn't just some accusation, baseless accusation. Well, we'll get into that in a minute. He's claiming that there's a top secret government program that exists to retrieve intact, fully intact, and partial UFOs. And they've been collecting them for decades and keeping it from Congress, which is part of this. He's going through the reason why he's going through the whole formal whistleblower process. And like I said, this started last year. He's been going to Congress with documents and information given to him by people working directly on these programs, high-level people in the government. So these aren't just randos. These are people, high-level officials. David Grush is a high-level intelligence official, probably one of the highest to come out and with such a bold claim like this, that the U.S. government right now has any number of intact, fully intact, and partial UFOs, aircraft and spacecraft that weren't created by human beings. Now, part of bringing this to Congress, he launched official. He launched an official complaint with the Inspector General's office in the Department of Defense, specifically the Office of Intelligence. So he brings this complaint that there's this secret program being run inside the U.S. government, and also that includes some defense contractors and corporations who are collecting these UFOs, and they're getting funding from the government but they're keeping this program completely secret and nobody else knows. So he launched this complaint with the Inspector General's office last year, and through their investigation, they found that it was, quote, credible and urgent, because not only is he alleging that this program exists, and basically exposing that this program exists, he's saying that he's facing retaliation from people within the government for trying to share this information with Congress. So both of those aspects were part of the complaint that the Inspector General's investigating since last year, and has found is, quote, credible and urgent. So urgent that they brought it to the head of the intelligence agencies and the director of national intelligence herself. And so, which brings us to where we are today, where David Grush is now doing interviews. The article was published yesterday in the Debrief, I think, and his interview was yesterday in News Nation. And a few things that I want to address before I get into a clip from the interview that I want to show you. It's about 3 minutes long, but I think gives a good summary of his story. First thing I want to say is he says that he's provided evidence to the Inspector General's office and to Congress of these aircrafts, of this program, and the whole cover-up. And also, he's alleging that it's not just the U.S. government; it's also governments around the world have secret programs to retrieve these UFOs, and it's created sort of a Cold War to see who can unlock this technology first. And so he's saying he's provided all this information to Congress, and that some of the information was so classified that even the staffers on these the staffers for these Congress people who do have high level security clearance, they didn't have high enough clearance for him to pass the documents to them. So apparently he's giving it straight to the heads of the committees and the members of these committees who are supposed to be doing oversight. And he says that he's handed over a bunch of documents. And also another point that's worth noting is there are a lot of people who are also high level in the Department of Defense, in the national security agencies and intelligence community. And you all know I have my criticisms of intelligence sources, but it is telling that a number of them are coming out on the record, like I said, high level people, vouching for this man's character, David Grush character, and saying that he's trustworthy and they would believe him. So you have that aspect of it. And so he says that he's given the documents over, but he hasn't made them public, and he hasn't given them over to journalists. And this has caused some friction and some warranted skepticism, because if you have a bombshell like this, earth-shaking discovery like this, and like me personally, I think we should definitely have transparency here, and the public should know this information, and should not be kept from them by the government. But, and I'll get into why it's likely that he hasn't made this information public, but he's going through the official whistleblower channels, and he's doing it in a way. That's why he's gone to the Inspector General. That's why he's gone to members of Congress who are supposed to have high enough clearance to look at this material. And he's avoided giving it to journalists and just publishing this information for everybody to see, which is the way that I believe it should be done, like how Julian Assange has done, and But this gets to the point that I'm trying to make. David Grush, he does have a lot of credibility on this issue, and to address the point of why he isn't making the information public, from my perspective, and I'm not justifying it, because at the end of the day, I do think the public needs to know this information immediately. And one thing that I've come across is that there has been certain evidence that members of Congress have been made aware of over the last 2-3 years in classified briefings, and still, again, none of this has been made public. So I get that he's going through the official whistleblower channel because rightfully, there's a presumption, no matter how justified the act of whistleblowing is, and how much the public needs to know that information, when it comes to national security issues and issues of war and the Department of Defense and Intelligence, when you do that, you are risking your freedom and your life. Look at what happened to Daniel Hale. He was the whistleblower who informed us of this drone assassination, extrajudicial, illegal drone assassination program that's being run inside the CIA, where they just give the president or whoever's making the decision names on a list. There's no trial. There's no formal investigation or hearing or anything like that. They say this person's a threat, this person's a terrorist, and then the person's assassinated. And then also, 90% of the time, the drones they're so either wildly inaccurate or the operators don't give a fuck that 90% of the time they drop bombs. They drop bombs on innocent civilians. So they're bombing wedding parties, they're bombing schools, they're bombing hospitals and shit like that. And they're not actually bombing terrorists that are on the kill list that they say that they're going after. Daniel Hale was the one who exposed this information to the public. He was a whistleblower. He was somebody who was working directly inside the program. He's in prison. Look what happened with Chelsea Manning. Exposed the Iraq and Afghanistan warlocks to WikiLeaks. Ended up in prison and being tortured. So I get the urge to want to see this information and want him to come out directly and give this information to the public. But at the same time, he is a human being. He is a person. And it is almost... We all... At the end of the day, for most of us, our self-interest plays a role in the decisions that we make. So it's almost unreasonable to say, yes, I want to know this information personally, and the public wants to know this information as well. So therefore, you need to put everything on the line and just jump straight into prison to get this information out to the public. If he thinks that he could get this out in a way that keeps him out of prison, and that's what he's trying to do, then okay. But at the same time, like I mentioned before, Congress has gotten information about what's being kept from them by these black UFO programs being run inside the intelligence agencies. And they've had some of this information for years, and they still refuse to make it public. So what seems to... But I'm not going to get too much into how I see them, because at the end of the day, the whistleblower process works if you have a Congress that's actually accountable to the public and actually representing the public and has the interests of the public front and center. And that's just not what we have. We have an oligarchy, and we have Congress that's run by corporate interests. So I don't think that their priority is disclosing this information. It's that they were left out of the loop, and they were left out of the decision-making process, and they just want to be in on it. That's the way I see some of the way that it's not being made public yet by Congress, even yet to this day. the information that David Grush has given them over about a year ago now. So, also, now just the implications of this, that the government has intact UFOs, and also apparently the bodies of pilots from UFOs that have crashed. Just a bunch of questions. Okay, so apparently aliens are here regularly. So what are they doing here? How are they interacting with people? This technology, like, how advanced is it? Like, what kind of problems can be solved? And of course, just like these overarching questions about life. So it's one thing to think that there's other life out there in the universe, and it's another thing to know that. And it opens questions about, of course, and if you watch the show, you know I don't believe religion. I believe all the religions are made up anyway. But it definitely proves that, because none of them mention aliens. I think that'd be a pretty big fucking thing if you're speaking to God, that at some point he'd mention, hey, there are these beings that have way more technology than you and way more advanced than you, and they're just like all over the universe. I would think that if anybody was speaking to God and he knew that information, somebody would know that in one of these religions. So it basically proves all the religions are made up. But then also, that can be a revelation like this can really change the direction of humanity, because it could provide people with some perspective. Because all of these problems that are major problems that I talk about here on the show, these are all easily solved problems, but they just, people in positions of power don't want to do it. But when now we're faced with this huge, like, existential revelation about answers to questions that we never even thought about asking, it's can definitely mobilize people to come together and start working towards a common goals and common causes, if not anything, just to figure out how we can best use this technology to advance our own life here on Earth. So there's just so many questions that this opens up. And of course, just the criminal cover-up that's been going on for decades, apparently, and that David Grush is exposing. So I have the clip from his interview. I'll play it, and let me know what you all think, all right?
And now in a News Nation exclusive, David Grush, an Air Force veteran, former member of that task force, and veteran of the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, is formally blowing the whistle on secrets he says no one has ever shared publicly before.
You are one of the most trusted former intelligence officials in the US defense and intelligence establishment.
Yes, I was.
You were trusted with the most intimate secrets.
Yes.
Grush sitting down with award-winning investigative journalist Ross Coulthart, who's reporting for News Nation and has spent years reporting on the UFO question.
What conclusion did you come to at the end of your time on the UAP task force?
The UAP task force was refused access to a broad crash retrieval program.
When you say crash retrieval, what do you mean?
These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, call it spacecraft if you will, non-human, exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
How many?
Quite a number.
You're kidding.
No. I thought it was totally nuts, and I thought at first I was being deceived. It was a ruse. People started confiding in me. They approached me. I have plenty of current and former senior intelligence officers that came to me, many of which I knew almost my whole career, that confided in me they were a part of a program. They named the program. I've never heard of it. And they told me, based on their oral testimony, and they provided me documents and other proof, that there was, in fact, a program that the UAP task force was not read into.
Grush alleges the U.S. government has recovered non-human craft for decades. He's filed a whistleblower complaint saying he gave what he calls the classified proof to Congress and the intelligence community inspector general. News Nation has confirmed David Grush's credentials and resume. We've not seen or verified the alleged proof he says he's provided to investigators. He says he can't show us the proof for national security reasons. He also tells us he's not seen photos of the alleged craft himself, but has talked extensively with other intelligence officials who have.
If you're right, if you're telling us the truth, everyone, the entire American public, has been lied to for decades.
Yeah, there's a sophisticated disinformation campaign targeting the U.S. populace, which is extremely unethical and immoral.
You are saying to the human race, for the first time, an official intelligence representative at a high level from the US government is saying publicly, we are not alone.
We're definitely not alone. Absolutely, the data points empirically that we're not alone, yeah.
Do we have bodies? Do we have species of
Well,
non-human?
naturally, when you recover something that's either landed or crashed, sometimes you encounter dead pilots. And believe it or not, as fantastical as that sounds, it's true.
All right, and something that I really should have mentioned earlier in this segment. So all of this testimony that he's given, the documents that he's given over to Congress, he's signed this all under oath. So he's doing it under threat of prosecution for perjury. So yes, he hasn't provided the rock solid evidence to journalists and to the public yet. I have issues with that. I don't think someone who is so high up and respected in his career, in his field, would risk it all and possible prison time to fabricate this story and give it to Congress, and maybe with the intention of giving it to the American people. That just strains credulity to me. So I don't know what more to add. There are just a lot of questions. I'd definitely be following the story. You guys let me know your thoughts about this in the description box of this video, or in the comment section of the video. But if you want to help support the show, links to PayPal if you want to do one-time contributions, Cash App, Patreon if you want to sign up and help support the show monthly. All of the links are in the description box. Thank you all so much. And I definitely want to hear a lively discussion in the comment section. I'll be jumping in myself. All right.